Their star drivers, Alain Prost of France and the great Niki Lauda, have won no fewer than 5 of the races so far, and Prost, in his bid to become the first Frenchman ever to win the World Championship, has a 10.5-point lead at the top of the table. And so I asked McLaren team director Ron Dennis just how this dominance had been achieved.
Well, I'd like to think that what we're looking at now is the result of a lot of hard work on the part of my partner John Barnard, who's the designer of the car, his engineering staff, and our philosophy of hard R&D before the car's built. A great deal of effort on the part of TAG and Porsche to make the engine very competitive.
We had a very good car at the beginning of the year, but I think our car now is much more competitive, and all the team, everybody is working in the same direction, the same way, and we improve the car so well that we are competitive all the time. But I think we have a good, very good engine. The TAG Porsche engine is very good. About the fuel consumption is okay, is one of the best, and I would say the best at the moment. And we have the best tires. Michelin tires are very good everywhere, even when it's wet, like Monaco, for example. And I think everything is okay, everything is perfect. So I would say we have the best car at the moment, and the best team, and the best organization.
We talked to people, we visited the BMW facility, we looked at the Hart engine, and really when it came down to a decision, we decided that what it was going to need for 84 and 85 was a purpose-made Formula 1 engine, and it was for that reason that we invested in this program with TAG.
How important is the part that TAG and Mansour Ogier and his Technique d'Avant-Garde company have played in this?
Oh, an extremely important role, as they now own the world rights to the engine, and there was obviously a huge investment required, and that investment had to be based on virtually a paperwork engine, a concept, an idea and a philosophy, and takes a lot of business bravo to get in and risk that sort of investment, and I think it's paid off for them and for us with the engine and all the other people associated with the program.
We worked very hard last year. We basically lost all last year's season to develop this engine and the car. And I think the success today makes the combination really between the TAG engine, the McLaren chassis and the tires.
We evolved what we consider to be a very good monocoque, which was the first of what you see as being the norm now in Formula 1, that is graphite chassis, and it performs very well, yeah.
So we've talked about the engine, we've talked about the car. What about the two men who are driving it, Mr. Prost and Mr. Lauda?
Well, I suppose they're not too bad. They're certainly expensive, and if performance is related to cost, then I suppose they're doing a pretty good job.
Ron, you've got the problem that every Grand Prix manager would like. You've got two men at the top of the World Championship now. When do team instructions come into play?
If ever, only when one of the drivers is in a position that he can't win the World Championship. And then I think, to be quite honest with you, it would be totally unnecessary for me to issue any instructions, because they're both professionals, and if one can win and the other can't, I think you'll find that between them they'll sort out the situation and hopefully give the team the best result, because they're a part of a team, and we're here to win the World Championship, win Grand Prix, and they're more than aware of that fact. We come to every Grand Prix and do our best, and hopefully our best will continue to be good enough. If not, then maybe the odd second and third won't be too bad. I'm a great believer in ambition, and obviously it's always been my ambition to be successful in, as with anybody, in whatever you do, you want to be successful in it, and obviously it's a very pleasant feeling, but we haven't won the World Championship. We're under no illusions. I think everybody in the team, including myself, has their feet firmly on the ground, and we just continue to do our best. If we win the World Championship, then maybe I'll allow myself the luxury of feeling some pleasure.
I suppose you could call Ron Dennis quietly confident. Well, he ought to be. Alain Prost is on the front row, but they're going to face one heck of a battle from Lotus, from Brabham, from Ferrari. And I wonder if Jackie Stewart thinks whether or not Alain Prost can score his 4th victory. Jackie?
Well, Barry, thank you very much. Winning 4 on the trot's not very easy. I was never able to do it. I won quite a few 3 Grand Prix back-to-back. Jochen Rindt, in fact, was able to win 4 back-to-back, but it's a rarity nowadays. I think when I see Ron Dennis talking about his drivers in that way, I know they're expensive, but I think he's got the 2 best drivers in the business today. Niki Lauda, who's enormously experienced, and Alan Prost, who's bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, very hungry, very ambitious, and has never won the World Championship, and really has been the bridesmaid now for 3 or 4 years. The other drivers and the other cars in this field, however, shouldn't be forgotten, because we do have some amazing talent available. This is becoming more and more professional every year. People like Brabham, Williams, of course, have now got a Honda engine. And it's interesting, I think, when we address the subject, there are now 6 major car manufacturers involved in Grand Prix racing. You've got Ferrari, you've got Porsche, you've got Renault, you've got Alfa Romeo, you've got BMW, and you've got Honda. All of them interested in projecting their good name around the world. And then, of course, you've got the Ford engine in there also. So really, it's quite an interesting combination of the large multinational corporations performing against the public in a way, because it's for them that they are courting success. So therefore I think this Labatt Grand Prix of Canada, Brian, is once again going to be as exciting as we've ever seen it before, and I think more competitive than we've ever seen before, because I think it's time, frankly, for McLaren to be knocked off their pedestal just a little bit.
All right, let me ask you about Tyrrell. There are only 3 non-turbo cars starting this race out of 26. Tyrrell has 2 of them. There were 16 turbos last year, 10 non-turbo. With a tough course on fuel, do they have a chance?
They certainly have a chance, and of course they're looking for their lightness and their agility to be able to get them not to win this motor race. I don't think even Ken Tyrrell, in his more optimistic side, would ever think he was going to win it, but I think he could finish in the first 5.
Let's talk about Brabham. That is defending world champion Nelson Piquet and Corrado Fabi replacing his brother Teo. Barry Gill talks with Piquet, who has his 3rd pole position of 1984.
Nelson, congratulations on your 3rd pole position of the season. You must like Montreal.
Well, yes, 2 years ago I win here after a very bad year, and everything is coming right now for this year.
I have to tell you that earlier today, the experts were saying that your luck had to change, and this is the race you're not only going to finish but win. How do you feel?
Well, it's very difficult to say to win the race or not to win the race, but I can say the car is very competitive. We did a very good running with the full tanks this morning, and the car is perfect. Nothing happened in the 3 days race qualifying, and I hope tomorrow the car keeps together.
And how have you managed to keep so cheerful, Nelson, with all the things that have happened to you this season so far?
Well, I think it's used to already, because I'm 6 years in the same team. We have a lot of good years, a lot of bad years, and I go up and down. I think the best thing is to work together and try to get out of the down part.
About 12 minutes to the start of the 1984 Labatt Canadian Grand Prix, and our coverage will continue as Sports Weekend continues from Ile Notre Dame.
New circuit in Montreal.
10 minutes to go here on the starting grid, and as you can see, it's an absolutely perfect day for motor racing here in Canada. The temperature's 26 degrees centigrade, that's 82 degrees Fahrenheit. The track temperature's 105 degrees, that's 35 degrees centigrade, and the wind's 40 miles an hour, 18 kilometers. But it's going to be infernally hot in those cockpits, well over 100 degrees. What a change from Monaco just 2 weeks ago, when the rain stopped the race halfway through. This is going to be very different. Not that Canada hasn't had its problems sometimes. I've been coming here since 1979, and this looks as if it's going to be the first time that the race has started on time. Remember the insurance row? Remember when the late, great Gilles Villeneuve forgot to stop on the warming-up lap, and the race had to be restarted? Then there was that multiple shunt in 1980, the awful rain in 81, of course the tragedy in 82, and last year we had no power on a day just like that. Well, hopefully there are no gremlins today. We've got 26 of the world's greatest drivers. The situation is poised where everybody wants to beat McLaren, and McLaren are determined not to be beaten. It's going to be a great race, Brian, and everyone's getting very excited indeed down here on the grid.
Well, Barry, all 26 drivers that came have qualified. That is because the 27th, Patrick Tambay, is not racing in Renault today because of a broken left foot. Right now, let's run down the starting grid for today's race. The defending world champion, Nelson Piquet, qualified with a track record 1 minute 25.442. Alain Prost has won 3 races so far in 1984. On the second row, look out for Lotus. That is Elio De Angelis, Lotus with a Renault engine. And speaking of Renault, the only Renault in the race belongs to Derek Warwick, his teammate Patrick Tambay breaking his left leg at Monte Carlo. The Ferraris are on row number 3. The defending champion, the little Frenchman, René Arnoux, and the only non-McLaren winner so far this year, 27-year-old Michele Alboreto. De Angelis' Lotus teammate, Nigel Mansell, will be on row number 4, as will two-time world champion, a winner of 2 races this year, Niki Lauda. On row number 5, Ayrton Senna from Brazil, second to Prost in that controversial race at Monte Carlo. There's Andrea de Cesaris with Alfa Romeo last year, Ligier in 1984. And we run down the rest of the grid. Eddie Cheever with Alfa, Winkelhock in the ATS from West Germany, Haino in the Ligier, Ricardo Patrese, the other Alfa, former world champion Keke Rosberg. That is Corrado Fabi, who is replacing brother Teo, who is driving on the kart circuit this weekend. Lafitte, Thierry Boutsen, Inzani in the Osella, Johnny Shikato, a former world motorcycle champion, Martin Brundle, and Beloff are in non-turbo cars for Ken Tyrrell. Could be a factor. Also in a non-turbo car, the only other one is Mark Surer in one of the Arrows. That is Hub Rothengatter from Holland, replacing Mauro Baldi, who is at Le Mans this weekend. Blackwell from Australia, who raced here as a rookie in 1981. Alio in the Ram Hart. Jackie Stewart, we have talked about McLaren naturally, and Brabham, the defending world champion Nelson Piquet. Let's talk about some of the other teams, beginning with Renault.
Well, Renault have had a pretty bad time here. There was an accident, of course, in Monte Carlo where Patrick Tambay did injure his leg, broke a bone, and that yet hasn't recovered. He did drive a car on the first day of practice to try and see if he could race, has chosen not to do so. But they've also broken 12 engines, apparently, during this weekend, between what Ligier have, between what Renault have, and, of course, Lotus are running with Renault engines also. Pretty disastrous. The Williams team haven't been going all that well, not as fast as Keke Rosberg and Jacques Lafitte would like. They've been having car troubles rather than necessarily engine problems. They have a Honda engine, but they could be competitive. I think the Lotus operation could be very good if it weren't for the problem of so many engine difficulties that they've had, because they haven't really allowed their car's chassis to be set up correctly. There you see the starting grid right down there, and you see the Renault mechanics around there. There's a lot of yellow when you see them. And there's Derek Warwick, who was able to drive a car around the track for us with a camera mounted the other day there, and he will be able to comment on what gears, what speeds he's doing as he drives around this great circuit.
Okay, here we go, coming out of the pit lane here. We come out in the middle of the fast corner, which is normally flat in fifth. It's normally quite a difficult corner to take on race day because of the fact that you're on full tanks. You go through this piece here, you're approaching this corner at roughly about 185 miles an hour, flat in fifth gear, down to fourth for the right-left twist. There's a very bad bump just there, which also upsets the car and normally takes you right to the outside where you see the car going. Up to fifth, you settle the car down to fourth, left-hand corner, about 160 when you're going on a flying lap. You hold fourth all the way into here, down to second, quick flirt to the hairpin, into first, round the hairpin, second, third, fourth, just under the bridge you take fifth, speeds of about 150 going into the right-hander, down into second, you take third at the apex on the left, coming out you take fourth straight away, which is you go under the bridge here, you take fifth, which is blind completely. It looks just like you're going through a tunnel. On the brakes, down, into second gear again. Third in between the corners, fourth on the exit. Very important because you've got a long straight after this corner. You reach speeds of about 180 through here, and you brake on the 100-meter board, and you just see go by now. Down into fourth, third, second. You turn in on the second. Third again. Again, it's fairly important to come out of this corner well because you have a long straight. up into fifth, and this is the hairpin before the pits. So you go all the way down through the box into first gear. Very difficult corner because it's the slowest corner on the track. Very important to exit this right, over into the pit lane, up through the box, up into fifth about now, and you cross the start-finishing line, which of course I hope to finish first on this afternoon.
Well, a point of view shot of this course from Derek Warwick, who is having his problems here in Montreal this weekend. The Renault team, as Jackie Stewart mentioned, going through, what did you say, 12 engines? I know it was 10 yesterday.
Well, they had 2 more this morning. In the warm-up this morning, Mansell lost another engine. Apparently De Angelis has had trouble also. So 12 engines, a lot of engines. If they carry on like this, they won't have enough engines for the Detroit Grand Prix. But these people are certainly having no trouble. That Alan Prost is certainly amazingly competitive this year, as we said earlier. And there you have the Lotus sitting down there in a very comfortable position. Elio De Angelis, the young Italian, very glamorous, good pianist incidentally. There you do have one of the Renault cars, of course, driven by Derek Warwick, who you saw driving around the circuit just a few short seconds ago. And of course the Ferrari of René Arnoux. René is due for a win. In fact, I chose him to win this race on a little lottery that they have at the track here amongst the journalists. I think René Arnoux could do quite well. And of course in car number 27, Michele Alboreto, a man who I consider, and the man with the red shirt there, by the way, is Porghieri, who is a director of Ferrari on the board of directors and has been the chief engineer of that team for many years. Back there, car number 12 is the other Lotus. That's driven by Nigel Mansell, who was leading the Monaco Grand Prix until he slipped in a banana skin going up the hill to the Hotel de Paris 2 weekends ago. And Niki Lauda, who spun out also in Monte Carlo with a little trouble. National anthem being played at the present time, people standing at attention. Always an emotional moment at any Grand Prix, I always feel. It happens at Indianapolis, it happens in every Grand Prix in every nation that we visit. Very touching moment. The crowds stand in silence, the flags of all the nations fly, the mechanics have butterflies, as do the drivers. There's nobody without an emotional touch at a time like this. Young Senna, the man who finished second in the Grand Prix of Monaco, as we go further back in the grid there, one of the Ligier cars, also been having trouble all the way through this weekend. That car there, in fact, was the one of Andrea De Cesare. There you see the Alfa Romeo, Eddie Cheever, young American driver living in Monaco today. A great spectacle, the start of a Grand Prix, great electricity in the air. It's a pregnant silence before the engines start up, and they've just done so now. Few short minutes away, they will continue around the racetrack one more lap. They will try to keep in order, and when they come under starters' orders, they will come back to the positions you see them in at the present time. Of course, keep in mind that the pole sitter is Nelson Piquet from Brazil, twice world champion, winner of this Grand Prix here. Very experienced, cool, calm, calculated driver. No Latin nerves with him. Very cool man.
Nelson Piquet had a great line the other morning in a news conference. One of the Montreal writers asking Piquet, have the fuel restrictions in 1984 hurt Brabham? He says, I don't know. I haven't gone far enough to run out of gas.
Well, that's rather sad. Now the green flag is being waved, but that's only to set them off. And I think it's Sid Olin who's doing that, of the Labatt Company. Sid's waving them off, and they are going to continue around, slowly warming their engines, their transmissions, their tyres up. The mechanics are now clearing the grid away from their air starters and their spare tyres and their bits and pieces.
Jackie, I mentioned the fuel. They are limited in 1984 to 220 liters. Many teams were cooling the fuel before the race. Now, as I understand it, it's the size of the tank, 220 liters, not the amount of fuel. If you cool it, the fuel contracts.
That's as I understand it too, but they went into great lengths to do this in the very early part of the season, Brian, down in Rio de Janeiro, where temperature was a big factor, but in fact many of the fuel lines froze up because the refrigeration was too severe for it. So they've given up most of that now, and they didn't bring all of their equipment with them. If you see the odd car moving around erratically, that of course is to allow the tyre temperatures to get up to their best working temperature. Tyres, like anything else, take a little bit of warming up, and if you see a good athlete stretching before he goes for his run or for his high jump, it's just a question of preparing all of those muscles to give their best performance when they're needed, and the same applies to tyres and cars.
What about tires? Speculation this morning that some teams might not be coming in at all. The track is very, very smooth, they feel.
Well, I think the question is going to be how hard they've got to drive. These turbocharged engines are producing 700 brake horsepower. There's a lot of power there, and they can use up a lot of power transmitting onto that road through those tyres. And if they have to drive too aggressively, then the tyre temperatures go beyond their best working temperature, and then they get sloppy, and it's on occasions like that they have to come in to change wheels and tyres. Nowadays they can do that in a little over 9 seconds. Some of them as close as 9 seconds, and there's a car weaving around there just getting his temperatures right up to where he wants them to be.
We talked about the fuel. Last year, some of these turbos were guzzling 350 liters of fuel in a race. This year, they are limited to 220 liters, and this Montreal course is considered by the drivers probably the toughest on A, fuel consumption, and B, brakes.
Correct. Now, they've got carbon fiber brakes now, composite carbon fiber, which has been, instead of metal, it's lighter, it's stronger, they say, and it diffuses the heat more quickly. Now you see the two fast men of this race shadowing each other. Nelson Piquet looking in his rear view mirror. Coming up there in close proximity was Alain Prost, as you see from a lovely helicopter shot near this beautiful circuit in the island.
Jackie, the first corner after the start, probably, especially at the start, the most dangerous on the course. This is crucial. On the left of your screen, defending world champion Nelson Piquet. On the right, Alain Prost.
And then on the top right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a light system there that will come on red when all of the cars have come to a stop, and they will then be under starters' orders. Within 10 seconds of it turning red, the green light will come out, and only then can they start, and they're off. They're off with, oh, and Piquet's made a poor start. In fact, Alain Prost clearly into the lead with a Lotus also passing Piquet. That was a fast start. I think it rather caught Piquet by surprise. Alain Prost leads away, a Lotus on the left-hand side there, but Piquet's tucked in behind him in second place. De Angelis is in third there. There's a Ferrari up there, and then there's also Mansell.
A clean start to the 1984 Grand Prix as Alain Prost takes the lead from defending world champion Nelson Piquet.
The two Ferraris, I think, now are fourth and fifth, with Mansell immediately behind in sixth place. Now there's Piquet overtaking Prost as they go into a fast part of the circuit. He's done him under braking. A very clean pass with the kind of experience on this first lap when lots of people are a little bit nervous and tentative. That's where somebody of his experience and knowledge can do it. He's a very talented driver with, of course, the knowledge of having so many wins under his belt and 2 world championships. Alain Prost, on the other hand, was obviously not going to risk anything on the early part of this lap. We're only halfway around the first lap on this race.
We alluded to it in the first half hour of our broadcast. The talk here in Montreal all week has been Piquet cannot go on forever failing to win races. One of the concerns, though, for the Brabham BMW team is it has not been the same problem.
And here's a Ferrari trying to get himself, and he's done so into third place now. That looks like Arnaud's got himself into third place, or is it Alboreto? Difficult to see from this distance from our commentary position as we look at our screen as they finish the first lap. Piquet, Prost, Alboreto, then Arnaud passing De Angelis, and then Warwick is up there after that. But look at the lead already that Piquet has found. A nice cushion. And the two Ferraris have moved up into third and fourth position. There's Warwick, there's Mansell, there's Lauda.
You were saying that Ferrari is either up or they're down. There's really no in-between. And I tell you, the crew, I was down there about 45 minutes ago, that Ferrari team is piped high. They are ready to go. They love Montreal.
Well, there's a lot of anticipation for them here. There's a great tire war going on between Michelin and Goodyear. The two front runners at the moment are both Michelin shod, and then the Goodyear runners are immediately behind that. So there's a lot of pressure here for success in a variety of different ways. It seems to me that Prost has closed up the gap just a wee bit. Alan Prost hungry to try and keep this run of success going. Alboreto a little bit behind there. Arnaud stringing it out also. There seems to be just a long snake here. There's no close racing for the first 4 or 5 positions there. Then we find ourselves a gap before we get the Renault. So they're coming up towards the end of the second lap. Alboreto has been closed upon a little bit, just a little bit by Arnaud, and so they're peeking through. And Prost, then Alboreto, then Arnaud, then De Angelis, then Warwick, then Niki Lauda, then Senna's right up there. He has also passed, in fact, Mansell, so Senna's really improved his position. The other car that we would look for to improve his position dramatically, incidentally, further back in the field, will be Beloff and the Tyrrell, who I think will eat up a few cars. But certainly the gap is very comfortable right now for Nelson Piquet. Nicely controlled, not going too fast, too quickly, but he has opened up a gap.
Ayrton Senna from Brazil in car number 19. That's the first of the Tolmans, was 6th in South Africa, and then 2nd 2 weeks ago to Alain Prost in that controversial finish at Monte Carlo.
There you see Nelson Piquet, a lovely shot with our CBC coverage here of this event live from the Ile Notre Dame on the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And Nelson Piquet leading that pack there. You can see the Ferraris are getting fairly close to each other. René Arnoux putting on a little bit of pressure to jolly up his own teammate there. The Ferrari car number 27 and 28. Then a long gap to Elio De Angelis in the Lotus. Quite a cushion there. Following behind De Angelis will be Derek Warwick in the Renault.
Alain Prost had some trouble with the turbo yesterday, and I believe it was the untimed practice.
He blew an engine, in fact, and had to stop out on the racetrack. That was no joy for him. They've been very reliable so far, those Tag Porsche engines. It's a busy weekend of motorsport this weekend. The Le Mans 24-hour race has been run and won yet again by a Porsche, Henri Pescarolo. And here's another pass coming into the hairpin right here. A little bit of a close. You know, the hairpin is a great favorite place for passing, but potentially one of the most dangerous places because there really isn't a lot of room if you're traveling at this kind of speed. There's really only one lane around that. And with drivers as experienced, as knowledgeable, and as tough as Grand Prix drivers, it's never easy to pass.
Nelson Piquet now increasing his lead over Alain Prost to 1.76 seconds.
Well, the point about Piquet here really doesn't have a lot of pressure under him because he hasn't done well at all this season so far. He has had unreliability plaguing him, and for that reason I think he can coolly go about his racing business. If he continues and does well, it'll be a great relief to have finished the race and hopefully won it, but if he doesn't do so well, it's just been a write-off season for him so far anyway.
Jackie, we were talking about his engine problems. He told me it was quality control. I was saying it hasn't been just one problem. Piquet said, look, if it was one thing race after race, I could understand it, but it seems to be a different thing, maybe, though, related to trying to get better mileage, better fuel consumption every race.
Well, BMW, of course, has been responsible for developing those engines, and last year there were all sorts of queries going about what sort of fuel they were using, how much fuel they were using, and of course they did have a good season by winning the World Championship. But certainly this year, when there's been very tight controls on, there's been no success at all by the BMW engine so far.
Our coverage of the 1984 Labatt Grand Prix of Canada will continue after this. Back at Ile Notre Dame in Montreal on lap number 6, the leader is still car number 1, defending world champion Nelson Piquet, now by 1.76 seconds over Alain Prost in the number 7 McLaren. The Ferraris are running 3 and 4, number 27, Michele Alboreto, number 28, René Arnoux. Niki Lauda standing in the number 5 position. De Angelis and Lotus is number 6. Warwick, who has blown 12 engines here this weekend. In the Renault, standing number 7, Senna. The rookie is number 8. DeCesaris is number 9. And the other Lotus driver, Nigel Mansell, standing in the number 10 position.
I think it's interesting that Niki Lauda has picked up 3 places already. He started off in 8th position and he got himself into 5th position right now. This is the kind of race that Lauda would be expected to stop. It may well be a case of him not driving as hard as he might do just to make sure that he does finish. Remember, he needs to pick up points in the World Championship. So does this man here, of course, the man who's leading the race. But right now, he would just be satisfied to pick up 9 points by winning the race. He's going out for victories now. There you see the car number 11 car, that's Elio De Angelis and the JPS Lotus with the Renault engine. As he comes behind Niki Lauda, that was Lauda who went through there. There is De Angelis, and Warwick is immediately behind him in the yellow and white Renault. Derek Warwick closing up for him. He, you see, with the blue and white helmet there. Very talented driver, took us around the circuit there in his Renault car. Michele Alboreto, another man that I reckon greatly for the future. This is a nice little race that's going on here between De Angelis and Warwick. Warwick is definitely top. You keep in mind they're both Renault powered.
Derek Warwick so far this year.
And he's going to make an attempt very soon. I think if he comes out the S's well, you'll see Derek Warwick making an effort to get him on the next fast section here.
Warwick 3rd in South Africa, 2nd in Belgium, 4th at San Marino.
He's fallen back a little bit through those fast S's. There's a lot of turbulence behind another car when it's drafting or slipstreaming, and that upsets the aerodynamics of the car that's following you. You can't get as close to the car as you would like to because you lose the front aerofoils, those wings you just saw going out of the picture. The air is not so clean going over them, so the car's not pressing down on the road quite so much. You can close up on the slower corners, but on the faster corners, it's really quite difficult to keep the car in line, and that's the trouble that Warwick is now having with De Angelis. But I must say he's dropped quite a lot back in the last half lap.
Elio De Angelis, car number 11, the Lotus, the Italian driver, 3rd this year in Brazil, 5th in Belgium, and 3rd in San Marino, also was 5th in France. Derek Warwick stalks De Angelis. People saying, Jackie Stewart, that Warwick will be the next world champion to come from British Tires.
I think he was the man to do the job. He is very calculated. That man there has won 2 world championships. Car number 8, that's the McLaren with the Tag Porsche engine of Niki Lauda.
Interesting about Niki Lauda, Jackie Stewart, he could surpass you as the all-time points leader in Grand Prix history with a win here today. Niki Lauda has 352.5 points. He retired with 360.
Yes, well, records are made to be beaten, and mine, I to be perfectly frank with you, I didn't know I held that record. Incidentally, the 2 Ferraris are closing very hard up to Alain Prost. This could well be an interesting set of circumstances because Piquet is not pulling away from them, but they're pulling up on Alain Prost. This could be a tire battle that's going on right now. Nelson Piquet cushioning himself nicely, won't be overdriving his car, but I think you will see Alboreto really making a move to try and get up against it as tight as he can, Alain Prost. Prost maybe feeling a little bit sensitive and tentative there. He's certainly under pressure. And after all, they've had such a good season so far. And here's one of the first cars, one of the Ligier cars to come into the pits. I think it may be car number 26. That's the Cesaris, is it? Or it's Hessel.
Yeah. Francois Hainaut in the Ligier, car number... No, that looks like... that is DeCesaris. Excuse us. We cannot see from our position here.
No, I think it is 25. I think it's in fact Hainaut. Yeah, I think it's Hainaut. Car number 25 at the back end here. They keep changing the cars, I must tell you that. You never know with that team. In Monte Carlo, they changed from 25 to 26 twice during the weekend. So we'll have to have a little look at the helmet. Cesare, the Italian driver, has a Italian flag colouring. But here you see this battle again, and look, there's Derek Warwick going out to take a little peek to see if he can get past De Angelis. He's in close proximity to pass now. Again, getting on to the faster part of the circuit. Oh, look, De Angelis is moving out so that he doesn't get the benefit of the draft. This could could be very interesting. And see, going through that faster corner there, Warwick already has dropped back a little bit, and I have to believe part of that is aerodynamics.
Jackie Hato is out of the race. They are now wheeling his Ligier below our broadcast position here in the control tower. So the first car out is the number 25 Ligier of Hato. Nigel?
De Angelis and Warwick, as we're looking at them right now, it's very interesting how two different drivers and two different cars perform differently in different parts of the racetrack. Just a few short seconds ago, in a way, they were very close together as they came out the hairpin, past the start-finishing line here, and look what's happened. They've opened up a gap on each other. Now this, of course, we're going back to see our leader, Piquet, coming through. Alan Prost under a lot more pressure now from Alboreto, and there you see the car of René Arnoux, the Ferrari, taking up that position behind his own teammate. Very bumpy going through this section of the racetrack. You can see the cars really dancing across the undulations here. The blue and white car of Nelson Piquet, the designer of that, called Gordon Murray, an amazingly clever man. More into pop music than he is to cars, in my opinion, but what a man he is designing cars.
Nelson Piquet has now increased his lead over Alain Prost to 2.14 seconds. He started on the pole here today, also started on the pole in Montreal in 1980 and 1981.
Somebody said the Ferrari is off.
Ferraris is out of the race.
I can't see the cars, I can't see the helmet colour right. If it's a white helmet, it's René Arnoux, and it is a white helmet. So it's René Arnoux that seems to be out of this motor race. Disappointing for him. No, it is Arnoux. No, it's Alboreto. It is Alboreto. It is Michele Alboreto, I think. Yes, the colour's not very clear from this angle. The man who won the Grand Prix of Belgium, Michele Alboreto, and he was the man who was most threatening to Alain Prost. And that is Prost, you see now, a big gap to René Arnoux. There must have been a problem there. He must have held up Arnoux as he pulled off the racetrack. So it's given, in fact, Piquet and Prost more of a cushion than they anticipated.
It is indeed Michele Alboreto that's out of this race, as René Arnoux, the defending champion, is trailing this man, car number 7, Alain Prost. So Alboreto, the only non-McLaren winner so far in 1984, a winner of the Belgian Grand Prix and driving car number 27. Very popular here because that was Gilles Villeneuve's number, is out of this race. He went out early also in Brazil, the first race of the year, when he had a great start there.
Well, that certainly gives those two cars up front a real healthy cushion. Mind you, Arnoux has never been accused of giving up, Brian, and I think you could see him closing the gap. He certainly, it's an unfair gap that exists at the present time, and misleading, I would suggest. So I do believe that you'll see that Ferrari catching Prost a little more progressively than one would imagine.
Nelson Piquet leading by 2.03 seconds over Alain Prost. Arnoux has moved up to third. Niki Lauda now running fourth.
And they will be lapping slower cars just in a few moments now. This is some of the slower cars that you're seeing in your picture. That is Piquet that's gone through, and then Prost. Coming up to the hairpin here, one of the Skoll Bandit cars.
That's Mike Backwell that they'll be lapping very soon, car number 10.
And there's the battle between De Angelis and Warwick. It's still rather open.
Our coverage of the 1984 Labatt Grand Prix of Canada will continue live from Montreal right after this. All right, thank you, Don. As we return, the leader is still Nelson Piquet. However, this man, Derek Warwick, in car number 16, the Renault, has passed De Angelis and now moved into 5th place. So number 11, Elio De Angelis, chasing Derek Warwick.
Well, that's, I think, a clear pass there by Warwick, and I think you'll see him opening up a gap on De Angelis. I don't think De Angelis is going to be a threat to him unless something goes wrong with his car. I think he's going to gradually pull up. And that's Mike Thackwell there that you're seeing. And That was a little bit of a tail-end slide there by Nelson Piquet. The rubber was letting go a little bit there for him. Of course, he's lapping that slower car. And by the way, what you saw flying off the car there was a lens that Nelson Piquet has over his visor, so that if he gets any oil on it, he can throw it off. It's bugs, it's oil from other cars, and he just peeled one off right there and it flew into the air. It's only a lightweight thing, no danger to other cars. The Renault that you see there, of course, being driven by Derek Warwick, the only Renault in the race. There's a few Renault-powered cars in the race, but this is the factory-entered car. There's only one of them because Patrick Tambay injured himself in Monte Carlo, has withdrawn from this race, so the honours lie on this man's shoulders to keep the Régie Renault in the news.
And into the pits right now, we understand, is car number 24, Ginzani. Also into the pits, that's René Arnoux, the number 28 Ferrari.
That's very serious. We're not looking at the Ferrari in the pits right now. That's Ginzani down there. He's out of his car, but the real story is further up the pit lane, and there's René Arnoux gone straight back out. Now, we did not see what was done to his car while he was in there. It looked as if it might have been one tyre replaced. Maybe he's picked up a puncture, but I think Barry Gill may well be going down there to find out what that might be.
If you're just joining us, the car you saw there parked at the side of the track is the number 27 Ferrari of Michele Alboreto. Alboreto was running fourth in the race at the time when he was forced out, so just one Ferrari left in this race. The leader is still Nelson Piquet, the defending world champion. Alain Prost is running second with René Arnoux third, Niki Lauda fourth, Derek Warwick fifth, and Helio De Angelis in the number 6 position.
Again, it's interesting to note the positioning there of Prost and Lauda. They're second and fourth. I mean, this does impress a lot of people because the race is young, but they're both in very serious positions to contend.
Jackie, two young drivers in this race today. Car number 10, we saw earlier that the defending champion Piquet was pursuing Mike Thackwell. He has replaced Jonathan Palmer in the Ram, who is driving in Le Mans, and Hub Ruthengatter has replaced Mauro Baldi in car number 21, the Spirit Honda.
Incidentally, just as I was previously talking about Lauda and Prost, they are in fact in second and third place right now. So the two McLarens, the sort of tremendous effort that's been made by McLaren this year to dominate this business is still very much to the fore. And if anything, he's closing on Nelson Piquet. Alain Prost is, and with Niki Lauda in third position, this team at this stage in the race are in a very healthy situation.
Jackie, as we look at Lauda, number 8, and Prost, number 7, chasing Nelson Piquet, why is it, I wonder, that no one has repeated as a world champion since, I guess, Jack Brabham way back in the early 60s?
1959 and 60, Jack Brabham did a back-to-back world championship. I was never able to do it. I won it every second year, but I was never able to do it back-to-back. Niki Lauda didn't do it every year either in his 2 world championships, and that's Niki Lauda you're looking at now, lapping a slower car as he comes through the field here in third position. Niki Lauda, very talented, driving the car number 8, is coming up in one of the Skull Bandit cars, probably Thackwell, I should imagine.
That is car number 10. He's just passed Mike Thackwell. You see it on the screen. A very interesting story here. In 1980, Mike Thackwell, at age 19, became the youngest driver in Formula One history when he drove for Ken Tyrrell. There's Thackwell just coming around the corner. His race, though, lasted only a couple of yards as he was replaced by the team's number 1 driver, Jean-Pierre Jarier.
So, the leader, as we see him go through here, we're live, remember, from the Ile Notre Dame, is Nelson Piquet in the blue and white car. The red and white car in your picture there is Alain Prost, leading the World Championship at the present time. And that McLaren team so far having won 5 out of the 6 Grand Prix that have been run this year of 1984. And Niki Lauda, incidentally, is in third position, the Prost teammate and the other man in contention for the World Championship.
You mentioned Niki Lauda. It's a more relaxed Niki Lauda we are seeing in 1984. In the past, journalists had trouble getting Niki to talk. I visited with him on Thursday morning. The first day they were out on the track, he was laughing. He said, "No problem, come on in, we'll talk, have a sandwich." He really really seems to be enjoying himself much more than he used to.
Well, I think he's more at ease, you know. He's a more relaxed driver today simply because he's more mature. There's less pressure nowadays for him. He is in a position of dominance. He's very successful financially. Certainly the highest paid racing driver in the world today is Niki Lauda, probably earning around about $3.5 million US a year driving his race cars. This man, Nelson Piquet, is earning a bit more than $2 million. Prost this year not quite so much because he went to the McLaren team rather late on, but the Grand Prix money nowadays is very impressive.
Speaking of big money, here's a fella that makes lots of it. Our man in the pits, Barry Gill.
Oh, well, you wondered why Arnoux came into the pits for a tyre change. This is the reason. This is what has happened to the tyre in just those few laps, 14 laps. It's very hot indeed out there, Jackie, and you can see what it's doing to the tyres. Other news from the pits, Skinzani is out of the race because of his gearbox, and Haino stopped because of a turbo problem. I've got a feeling, Jackie and Brian, we're going to have a lot more pit visitors very shortly indeed.
Well, the tyre problem you're looking at there, the driver, what happens is that they have a choice of compounds that they can use, and it's left to the driver. Now, I suspect that René Arnoux chose one of the very sticky, soft compounds, thinking that it would do him well to be able to drive quietly. That obviously has not been the case, and if you drive too aggressively and the tyre is not intended to run at the temperatures that you drive it to, then you have that mild blistering. That does not go all the way through the tyre, incidentally. It's only on the surface of the tyre, but it does, of course, affect the handling dramatically.
The leader is still Nelson Piquet. That's car number 11. Elio De Angelis, the first of the two Lotuses, and right now De Angelis running in the number 5 position as he trails Piquet, Prost, Lauda, Warwick, who is 4th. Running down the rest of the top 10, De Angelis 5th, Ayrton Senna, the Brazilian driver, number 6, René Arnoux. Barry Gill pointed out he came in with tire problems, standing number 7. Keke Rosberg, Jackie, has moved up to the number 8 position. Number 9, the other Lotus, that is Nigel Mansell. And number 10 is the Ligier of Andrea de Cesaris, drove last year for Alfa Romeo. His teammate, Francois Hainaut, is out of this race.
Well, Nelson Piquet himself opening up the gap just a wee bit in Alan Prost. Piquet is a very relaxed man. He lives in Monte Carlo nowadays, not in his native Brazil. He loves boating. He's got a private yacht, motor yacht that he spends most of his time on. He also flies his own jet. He has a Citation which he has learned to fly, and he's flown it all the way over here. In fact, he's in Canada here with his own aircraft. So he's having a good time with aviation and boating as well as driving racing cars.
You know, it's interesting that age 12, Nelson Piquet was one of Brazil's most promising young tennis prospects.
And doesn't play tennis at all now. He's hardly touched a tennis racket. You ask him to play tennis with you and he won't do it. The other fella who's following him, however, loves to play tennis, Alan Prost. But Piquet, most racing drivers are pretty agile at other sports. They've got good hand-eye coordination. He's now passing one of the Arrows cars, just slipping behind. He was held up there through that slower corner by the slower car, looking for a place to overtake, and through he goes under braking.
You mentioned the Arrows cars. There are only 3 non-turbos in this race today. The 2 Tyrrell cars of Martin Brundle and Stefan Belov, and the first of the 2 Arrows, car number 17, Switzerland's Mark Suhr.
Incidentally, as we're looking at our leader passing through there with Prost coming up, by the way, Arnoux has now got himself back up into 6th position. We saw him leaving the pits a little while ago, and he's climbed up through the field, is still in 6th position, so don't count René Arnoux out. And there you see Nelson Piquet using the road that he wants to. Alan Prost is now going to come up to lap the Arrow, but he's probably going to achieve that reasonably comfortably after this. They come along the back stretch into the slow hairpin, and that might be the time that he'll choose to do so. And he'll try and get up the inside, coming under braking now. You'll see that pass taking part now. We're just missing it. We're following the leader, of course. Our cameraman staying close to the man who's leading the race. There is Prost. Alain Prost from France, living in Switzerland nowadays, and there is Senna, Ayrton Senna from Brazil, one of the young men that I believe sincerely is going to be a world champion in the future.
As we look at Ayrton Senna from Brazil, that is car number 19, the first of the Tolman Hearts. He was second in Monte Carlo. A lot of controversy there. That race was called. People said, hang on. Senna, who is currently running 8th, would have eventually beaten Alain Prost. Monte Carlo should not have been halted. What do you think?
I think Jackie Hicks, who was the clerk of the course, did the right thing to stop the race. He's a good judge of racing. He drives well in the rain. He knows the Monaco circuit. He drives Formula 1 cars regularly, and he chose to stop the race. For me, it was fine. Senna, of course, the man you're looking at right now, would rather that the race had gone on a little bit. He would surely have passed Alain Prost, and he could easily have won the race. But that's not what that decision was all about. The decision was in the interest of safety, and in my opinion, Jackie Hicks did the correct thing.
It's interesting, a lot of the drivers and some of the commentators were saying, hang on, they halted it because a Frenchman was leading. Piquet said that the other morning, but people are pointing out just a minute, Jackie Hicks called Monte Carlo, and he is not a Frenchman.
No, Jackie Hicks is a Belgian. He's won the Le Mans 24-hour race 5 times. He's a man who is above any interest financially of any pressure of any of that kind, so I go along with Hicks' decision.
After 20 laps of the 1984 Labatt Canadian Grand Prix, Nelson Piquet leading Alain Prost by 2.68 seconds. He is nearly 9 seconds ahead of Niki Lauda. In 4th place is the Renault of Derek Warwick, followed by the Lotus Elio De Angelis, the Ferrari, the only Ferrari left in the race, René Arnoux. The former world champion Keke Rosberg in the Williams has now moved up to the number 7 position. Ayrton Senna, the young Brazilian driver we were just talking about, is standing number 9. And in 10th place is Andrea de Cesaris. Our live coverage of the 1984 Labatt Grand Prix of Canada, exclusively on Sports Weekend, will continue. And from London, England, Barry Gill welcoming you back to the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve on Ile Notre Dame in Montreal. Beautiful high shot of the western end of this course. Nelson Piquet, the defending world champion who has yet to finish a race in 6 previous starts, is leading Alain Prost now by 3.61 seconds, and Prost's McLaren teammate, the great Austrian veteran Niki Lauda, by 7 seconds.
Well, we're going to be looking for a battle right here. The battle we're looking at right now is De Angelis being pressed very hard by René Arnoux, and that is a battle for 5th and 6th position right now. Arnoux having come from behind, having been on the pits to change a tyre that needed some attention, to say the least, and he's now closed right back up on De Angelis' Lotus, and I think you'll be able to see a battle here very soon develop into a pass.
If we can stay with the Ferrari for just a minute, Alboreto has won for Ferrari this year, but other than that, he hasn't been in the points. René Arnoux has been much more consistent.
He's been finishing races, of course, that's the main thing, and before you can do so, there the cars out of the race so far. Michele Alboreto with mechanical trouble, and Canzani also out. He was out with transmission trouble. René Arnoux still in the race, and it's that Ferrari you're seeing now trying to move over and make a pass, but just feeling his way there. He really wasn't close enough to De Angelis to get through. De Angelis is not the easiest driver to pass, I might tell you, but Arnoux is certainly one of the most determined. He's going to try and do it under braking, coming into the slowest corner on the racetrack, and he's done it. Just a clean pass. That's what you call snookering a driver. He can't retaliate. You put him into a position where his wheels can't interlock yours and he can't push you around. Arnoux knows how to do this. De Angelis started to move over, but no, sir. You can't come in my door. I've closed it. That's one of the Spirit cars coming in.
Into the pits is number 21, Hub Rothengattner. He is a Dutch driver replacing Mauro Baldi in the Spirit Honda. Baldi is driving at Le Mans. An interesting story regarding Rothengattner. He told me this morning that a year ago, January, he broke his spine in 2 places. He was riding a motorcycle. He wasn't racing. He was simply driving home from an exercise class. This is his first open-wheel race in nearly 2 years, his Grand Prix Formula 1 debut.
Well, he's changing rubber, he's changing tyres, he's Pirelli mounted. There are Michelin, Goodyear and Pirelli in racing today. His tyres have been blistering also, it would appear. They've been, of course, a question of the driver choosing the correct compound to use. He's driving actually with a Hart engine now. They did have the Honda engine last year, and he's now driving the Hart. He's kept the engine running. He's just about to engage gear. He can't get it into gear. We're looking down from our commentary position, and he's stalled the engine right now as we are looking, of course, continuing. That number 2 car, by the way, was Fabi's car, Corrado Fabi, that we were looking at there. It wasn't the leader of the race. It was the teammate of Nelson Piquet, Corrado Fabi, his brother Theo Fabi. And there you see the Dutchman finally having restarted his engine. They're not all that easy to restart after they're stalled when they're that hot, you know.
Hub Rothengatner had gearbox trouble on Thursday, but talking about the fact that he broke his spine in 2 places, he actually has a pin in his lower back and wears a plastic corset to support it.
Well, there's some busy lapping going on here. This is the leader coming through the field here. A lot of heavy traffic. It'll be interesting to see if he takes advantage of Alain Prost in that traffic or whether it goes the other way around. Here you see Nelson Piquet coming into the slow hairpin. Now, he's not going to be able to get past too many of those cars, whereas Alain Prost is probably going to get past the Alfa Romeo as they come up past our commentary position. Piquet is stock, and there's Alain Prost got through. He passed Patrese comfortably, so if Piquet gets held up now, he will certainly be at a disadvantage as he comes, dives under braking. That's Fabi, Corrado Fabi, that you just saw. He's ahead of his team leader. And there is Nelson. He got past one of those cars.
The car he passed was number 20, the second Tolman Hart. That's driven by former world motorcycle champion Johnny Chicano from Venezuela. The other Tolman, car number 19, Ayrton Senna, is right now running in the number 8 position. There you see Piquet. He's followed by the car he's just passed, Johnny Chicano. There comes Chicano into the screen on the left.
He's now going to try and get Mark Surer driving one of the Arrow's cars, the Barclay Arrow. That's him there, the yellow car. There's Nelson Piquet behind him. He's going to get past him easily enough. That wouldn't be a problem for him. But then he's got his own teammate Corrado, who's under pressure from Surer. So Surer doesn't want to give anybody away. Looks like we've got a tyre flat in one of those cars as he goes in. I think it's our Dutch friend again in the Spirit. He seems to be unhappy. The car's not pulling away very cleanly.
That indeed is our Dutch friend, Hub Rothengatner.
And as we again take up this lapping process, Alain Prost has got through. And there's, that's the 2 Brabhams together there. So Corrado moved over to let his teammate through. Nelson Piquet now has a clear piece of track ahead of him. Corrado Fabi, and then Mark Surer behind him, and then Alain Prost. Now Prost is going to lose out on this one because Surer and Corrado Fabi don't want to give away anything to each other here. They're in a race of their own.
Corrado Fabi in the number 2 Brabham BMW. Last year with Osella, replacing his brother Teo, who is driving on the kart series this weekend. And we should also point out that Quebec's Jacques Villeneuve is driving his Canadian Tire Special in the kart series in Portland, Oregon.
There's Alain Prost, gets through very neatly there.
Quickly down to the pits and Barry Gill.
Well, as Arnoux makes his way through the field, we find out what went wrong with the other Ferrari. Poor old Michele Alboretto's just told me he had fuel problem, and so he's out. And another man we're not going to see much more of is poor old Hugh Brockengat. In his first ever Grand Prix, he stopped for new tyres, he stalled his engine, and he's now got gearbox problems. Just not his day.
Very interesting. You should mention Rothengatner. We talked about the fact that he broke his spine in 2 places on a motorcycle a couple of years ago. Jackie, the medical team here, they do a great job, headed by Dr. Hugh Scully, a heart surgeon at Toronto General Hospital. He was telling me today, we know all about the drivers. We knew about his back. We have a complete medical history on every driver in this race.
Well, that's of course true, very much so, and it has to be. They also fly in Professor Watkins, who's the head of the neurosurgical department at the London Hospital in Whitechapel in London. He's a real expert. He comes to all of the Grand Prix just to make sure that there is continuity between all of those specialists. So Hugh Scully very much in the know with Professor Watkins coming from England. He goes to every single Grand Prix.
Dr. Hugh Scully, the emergency coordinator for the Grand Prix. He works very closely with Paul Cook, who heads the rescue unit, and a Montreal physician, Dr. Jacques Bouchard, who heads the medical unit.
This is the battle that you're looking at right now. Now there's René Arnoux. He's come up and he's passed Warwick now. That's pretty impressive. René Arnoux come up there, and there you see him in the tight corner here. He goes right inside Warwick. Warwick went wide, actually. He did not intend that to happen. That wasn't a move that Warwick will be proud of. I think René Arnoux really muscled himself into that situation. It could have been a mechanical problem for Warwick. He could have got into the marbles, that's to say, slightly out of the line, but certainly Arnoux is charging through this field. Right now he's got himself right up to 4th position, which is indeed very impressive.
It's impressive when you consider, as Barry Gill reported, he came into the pits and had to change tires. Only one Ferrari still in the race. Alboreto is out. Nelson Piquet approaching the halfway mark of this 70-lap Labatt Canadian Grand Prix, leading Alain Prost by 1.73 seconds. Niki Lauda now 4.74 seconds back. Arnoux moving into 4th place. Warwick is 5th. The number 11 Lotus, Emilio De Angelis, running in the number 6 position. Keke Rosberg, the number 6 Williams, running number 7. Ayrton Senna from Brazil, 8th. Nigel Mansell, the other Lotus, is 10th. Eddie Cheever, the first of the Alfa Romeos, in the number 11 position. The Brabham BMW of defending world champion Nelson Piquet, and there's his teammate, Brabham number 2, that is Corrado Bobby. Alain Prost, who is now running 2nd, about to lap Bobby, who has already been lapped by the leader, Nelson Piquet. There's the first of the Tyrrells. That's car number 3, Martin Brundle. Ken Tyrrell once said, or at least he's quoted as saying, Brundle is the next Jackie Stewart.
Well, I hope he gets as much pleasure out of his motor racing as I've got out of mine. Certainly, if he has all of that, he'll be a lucky lad. Martin's a very serious young man. With Ayrton Senna last year, he dominated Formula 3 racing in Europe. He's done well. And Formula 3 champion in Europe not so very long ago is the man who's leading this race, in fact, Nelson Piquet. He came out of Formula 4, went into Formula 3, dominated it. I saw him race in a pouring wet race at Silverstone one year, drove like a champion, and of course he's demonstrated there that it was just no shot of luck.
Nelson
Great feel.
Piquet, a former Formula 4 driver, Jackie, and we should congratulate Peter Lockhart, who won the Canadian Tire Challenge, the Formula 2000 race here yesterday.
Well, that's another graduate in Formula 4. We had young John Jones, who finished 2nd only 18 years ago, and if he just casts his eye to the television set today, no doubt he'll be leaning over a rail somewhere watching Nelson Piquet right now. It's not so many years back, John Jones, that Nelson Piquet was doing what you did yesterday, so have hope.
Nelson Piquet, the leader. Our live coverage of the 1984 Labatt Canadian Grand Prix will continue on Sportsman.
The McLaren team are using the TAG Porsche turbo, the TAG Technique Avant-Garde, a European-based company from the Saudi Arabia area. They're into pharmaceuticals, they're into agriculture, into heavy construction, and now into making racing car engines. They were involved with the Canadair Challenger. They've sold a great many of those, that organization, in Europe, the rest of the world.
Interesting to see the Saudis here. It's also interesting to see the large number of Japanese here. Frank Williams' team running the Honda engines saw Frank last night downtown with several officials from Honda in Tokyo. Nelson Piquet, 4.57 second lead over Alain Prost, and let's see, he's got an 8-second lead over this man, two-time world champion Niki Lauda. As we look at Lauda, what happens later in the season? Niki was talking about this yesterday. He was laughing about it. What happens if Lauda and Prost get down near the end and they're running 1-2? Either one can win the world championship.
Then it's going to be very much push and shove, and I think it'll be any man for himself at that time. Niki Lauda is very keen to do well. He is also threatening my record of the greatest number of Grand Prix victories in the history of motorsport. I've won 27, and Niki, and there's a car coming to a stop here incidentally. Niki's won 21 Grand Prix victories, I think. There's a car going slowly. I don't think it's one of the leaders, so we shouldn't worry too much about that, but certainly Niki Lauda, very talented driver with enormous experience, and he is closing the gap, I see, on Alain Prost. This could be very interesting. He's actually closing up.
The all-time Grand Prix leaders, as Jackie Stewart said, he leads it with 27 wins in only 99 races. Jim Clark, the late Jim Clark from Scotland, had 25 and only 72. The great Argentinian driver Fangio had 24 and 51. Lauda has 21 wins, but in 147 Grand Prix. Lauda followed by Sterling Moss in 16. Jack Brabham has 14, as do Emerson Fittipaldi, and a very good friend of yours, the late Graham Hill.
Yep. Oh, the galloping Graham. He was quite a character. Niki Lauda chasing Alain Prost right now. Prost doesn't seem to have the healthy advantage that he had before, and of course Alain Prost and Niki Lauda will be given information from their pits as to what the gap is.
We have just had a birthday cake, of all things, delivered to our broadcast booth here in the control tower. Happy birthday, Jackie Stewart. I understand it. As a matter of fact, it was this time last year you were celebrating a birthday.
No, it was a few days ago that I, in fact, had my birthday, but the girls in the scoring next door very generously, and that's one of the... That's Thackwell. That's Mike Thackwell, youngest driver in the race. Car number 10 coming in. Unfortunately, it doesn't look as if he's having a good day. It looks like he switched the engine off.
Well, from all the fans across the country, they've appreciated your contribution to motorsport in Canada over the years and your work here at the Canadian Grand Prix. Jackie Stewart, a belated happy birthday as we look at car number 10. That is Mike Thackwell in the second of the Ram Hearts. He is replacing Jonathan Palmer, who is driving this weekend in Le Mans. Le Mans is history. In case you missed it earlier, Porsche is taking the top 4 positions. Henri Pasquarello, the winner. The David Hobbs team was third, and
Jacques Lafitte jumps out of his car as I interrupt you here. The car gets rolled away, and the young Frenchman, great character, Jacques Lafitte. Great golfer, great fisherman, great everything.
the pits at the top left of your screen. You see the control area, the large grandstand on your left. Uh-oh. Here is
Keke Rosberg.
Boy, both Williams cars are now in trouble. And here's Barry Gill.
Jack, what happened?
I think the turbo was out. One of the two turbo is out.
Very sorry, Jack. And this is his course where you've done so well, of course, isn't it?
No, I know my car was not too bad for racing, but you know we have a very bad testing qualification, and it's always on 17th position, and also I missed my start with my engine, blah, 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 and I was 21, 22 at the start. It's a bad position on the grid. Anyway.
Better luck next time, Jack. Thank you.
Jacques Lafitte, who won here in 1981, has no points so far in 1984. The first of the Williams Hondas is out of the race. The leader is still defending world champion Nelson Piquet. now by 3.34 seconds over the number 7 McLaren of world driving leader Alain Prost. That's Piquet you're seeing, car number 1. And he leads by 4.8 seconds over Niki Lauda. Once again, from the pits, here's Barry Gill.
Well, what tremendous drama here in the Williams pit. No sooner have we stopped talking to Jacques Lafitte, who's come in because of a turbo problem, than world champion Keke Rosberg, the former world champion, lying 7, has come in as well. We will certainly try and get a word with him and come back to you in the booth.
Thank you, Barry. It's interesting that on Thursday morning, after he got out on the track for the first time, Rosberg came in, went up to Frank Williams, and he was not happy at all. He was mad about the way the car's handling. He said, it's no good, I don't like it.
Well, drivers, I think, seldom are really happy with cars when they're not winning. And Keke is very keen to start winning some motor races. By the way, there's another one of the Ligiers come in. That is De Cesare coming in. De Cesare looks like he's having a wheel change apart from anything else. All 4 wheels look like they've been taken off.
De Cesaris was 5th this year in South Africa. Last year drove for Alfa Romeo. Rather long pit stop now, in fact a very long one.
A little bit hectic in the pits there. Not hectic for the man who's leading the race though. Still calm, still cool and still collected. Still not riding over curbs. But it does look as if he's been closed in a little bit by Alain Prost.
Listen, let me tell you, we're just halfway through this race. It's a 70-lap affair. He has yet to finish a race in 1984, so the question is, if indeed Piquet is managing to hold his lead near the end of the race, what's going to happen fuel-wise? Because they've had problems with the fuel consumption so far, and you can see Alain Prost in the orange and white McLaren closing in. That's car number 28, the Ferrari, defending champion, René Arnoux, standing in the number 4 position. His teammate, Alboreto, already out of the race. Arnoux driving an excellent race, considering that he came in and changed tires. Once again, let's go down to Barry Gill.
Well, I'm in a very unhappy pit indeed. As I said, first Jacques Lafitte, and then the former world champion, Keke Rosberg. Keke, what happened?
Engine just cut off. I think electric. It just quite returned without any warning stop.
Really hasn't been the Williams weekend, has it?
No, I think the race was going reasonably, but then this happened. I think we would have been looking quite good at the end of the race.
You certainly look as if you're going to get some points, Keke. You must be very disappointed.
You always are when you don't finish a race, because only the finishers get rewarded.
Here's to the next time, Keke. Thanks for talking to us.
And being a professional also lost money, right?
Keke Rosberg looked like he might win the first race of the year. That was in Brazil. He was 2nd to Prost, 4th in Belgium, 6th in France, 5th at Monaco. In fact, Rosberg has not won a race since last year at Monaco when he won for Frank Williams. They were then using the normally aspirated Cosworth engines. There's the number 28 Ferrari, defending champion here in Montreal, René Arnoux.
And here we see him locking up the brakes of that looks like Mansell in the Lotus, is it? But he certainly locked up his brakes there. Not the sort of thing you want to do, because the tyres themselves get flattened. When you lock up the brakes, the compound is so soft that there's a flat spot develops on the tyre where it was grinding against the road. And from that point on, quite often you can have a vibration that can be very disturbing to the driver.
The Ferrari officials saying they felt they were under tremendous pressure here in Montreal because of the large number of Ferrari fans, the Italian fans, not only from Montreal, they're here from all over the country. Our live coverage will continue after this. Brian Williams, 3-time world champion Jackie Stewart, and Barry Gill back at Ile Notre Dame in Montreal, lap 38 of the 70-lap Le Mans Canadian Grand Prix. The leader is car number 1, the Brabham of defending world champion Nelson Piquet. While we were in commercial, Jackie, Piquet raised his hand. Now, was he angry, maybe at Cheever, or is something wrong?
Well, I think he may have been slightly infuriated by one of the cars. He was laughing, probably didn't see him, and chopped his nose off a little bit, because the big thing on a situation like this is not to put yourself into a situation where another driver who has not seen you can really cause you a lot of trouble and can chop off one of your front wings or the front end of your car very easily. But he certainly did raise his hand. I at one time thought that maybe he was in trouble, but I don't think that's the case. I think to some extent he is in trouble, though, because Prost and Lauda seem to be closing up on him generally.
Well, Prost right now is only 1.30 seconds behind Piquet. Wasn't too long ago, Piquet had nearly a 5-second lead. Speaking of closing up, now in 10th place is Stefan Beloff in one of Ken Tyrrell's non-turbo cars. There's been a feeling here that either Beloff or Brundle would finish in the points. They're much easier on fuel. However, at the end of the race, Tyrrell has to come in because there's a minimum weight for these cars. Jackie, can you explain what they do with the water?
They put an extra ballast into the cars to keep them to the minimum weight, and it's a slight quirk of the regulations that this can happen. You add water to keep the weight in regulation level. Now this could well be protested because it is suggested that it's only the interpretation of the rules that we're speaking of here, so it could be a little delicate for the Tyrrell team if they finish high in the points.
What you're telling me is they weigh the cars after the race, not before the race.
They weigh before and after, but the most important period is afterwards, just in case that they've gone too light. This, incidentally, is a good race here that's going on between the two Lotuses here. Mansell has come up and is closed up on the number 11 car. That's Elio De Angelis there. His own teammate, Mansell, who, of course, as you may remember, was leading the Grand Prix of Monaco until he spun off and hit a barrier up by the Hotel de Paris. There, by the way, is one of the Benetton cars. That is either...
That's Patrese.
Is it?
Car number 22 is Ricardo Patrese, 4th this year in South Africa, the first of the Benetton Alfa Romeos. Patrese last year drove... Let's see, that is Patrese. Don't
well, he's out of the car, obviously. Here we are. The two Lotus is still scrapping. Both front wheels been damaged heavily. I didn't see another car involved in that. Mansell, by the way, lost quite a lot on the hairpin bend by going too wide. He lost a lot. He's putting his head down to say, I'm annoyed. And by the way, one of the Brabham cars are in the pits. Corrado Fabi's gone into the pits, teammate of the leader of the race, Nelson Piquet. That's quite an interesting fact.
And as we continue to look at this battle between the two Lotuses, and now in the pits, there's Corrado Fabi as he is coming back out into this race. Fabi, car number 2, the second of the Brabham BMWs, replacing brother Teo, who is driving on the kart circuit in the United States. The two Lotuses, number 11 is Nigel Mansell, or Elio De Angelis. Number 12 is Nigel Mansell, and one of the arrows out of the race now. That is Thierry Boutsen, I believe, from Belgium. Car number 18, the second of the arrows. He was 6th this year at San Marino. Car number 12 is Nigel Mansell, 3rd in France, 6th at Monaco, and right now Mansell running 7th, trailing his teammate De Angelis.
He's now trying to make up that lost ground that he lost at the hairpin last time, and he's now within grasp of being able to pass once again. I think you'll see Mansell now stalking him. He won't be able to get him before the hairpin, I shouldn't think, but they're coming down to that position now. If he's got a chance of overtaking, I think he's trying it on the outside. His own teammate, the two of them are going round side by side. De Angelis not letting him through. This is a little tricky. This is his own teammate. Now, Elio De Angelis moved over intentionally not to let him through, and I don't think that's very nice, to be frank with you. I think Mansell is going faster than De Angelis. It's fairly obvious that's the case, and yet De Angelis is not allowing him to get through. I'm not sure I approve of this.
Do you get bad feelings between teammates? Do they ever get out of the car and say, listen, you know what, I was supposed to go through, I don't care?
Well, it does happen occasionally. It must be avoided wherever possible because, you know, mechanics also have to live together with the drivers, and each driver has his team of mechanics. So it really is something that you want to avoid real friction on. By the way, Nelson Piquet is the man who's coming up, and he will shortly be lapping the two Lotuses who are in 6th and 7th position.
As we look at the pits area from high up in the helicopter, let's go down to Barry Gill.
Well, the last thing I want to do is spread any gloom and doom, especially for Nelson Piquet fans, but I have to tell you the reason Corrado Fabi came into the pit was because he was having a boost pressure problem. Let's hope that Nelson Piquet, who's had such an awful season so far, doesn't have the same problem, and that he not only finishes his first race, but he finishes in front. I'm not biased, but I just think Nelson deserves a win.
Well, Well, we've said it all along. Piquet is leading, but remember, they have not finished a race so far this season, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens as we get near the end of the race. 29 laps to go in this 70-lap Canadian Grand Prix.
And the two McLarens are now nose to tail, incidentally. There's a great race going on for second and third position now. Alan Prost is still in second position, but Niki Lauda has closed up behind them. So we've got two battles. This battle here, D'Angelo is leading, Mansell behind them. Then you have Nelson Piquet leading the race in car number 1, and just behind him, about 2 seconds behind, there is in fact Alan Prost trying to hold off Niki Lauda. This is the World Championship battle you're seeing right here.
So that means, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, only 7 cars on the same lap. The leader Piquet is trying to, or will soon, lap Mansell, who is standing in 7th place.
Nelson driving smoothly within his capabilities, obviously trying to save the car, save the fuel, save the tires, save himself as much as possible. These two drivers still scrapping. 28 laps remaining in this Labatt Grand Prix of Canada, and now Mansell is in a position to pass again. Now this could be very interesting. There's the other battle. There's Alan Prost and Niki Lauda very close together. There's no love lost, let me tell you, between these two guys when it comes to a race. We shouldn't spend too long in the pits here. De Chesery's not really much in this race. Back on the racetrack is where the battle is happening. There's a board meeting going on right there. So there's that battle, and look at this. Whoa. There's D'Angelis has moved over. Mansell's got through. Mansell has passed D'Angelis, and now Niki Lauda's attempting to get through as they go into the fast chicane after the pits here. They're just coming into sight now, but
there's your leader.
There's the leader. There's the man in second place. Alan Prost has still got it, but Niki Lauda, I prophesy, is going to pass. I think we'll see Niki Lauda passing Prost very soon.
There are only 6 cars on the same lap. And let me remind you, it's a busy day on CBC. Coming up later this afternoon on Sports Weekend, live coverage of the final round of the second of golf's Big Four, the U.S. Open. Don't forget the July 1st weekend, 4 days of live coverage of the 1984 Canadian Open from Glen Abbey and Oakville.
Niki Lauda has passed Alan Prost into second position. Niki Lauda has done it. So Niki is in there.
You said there was no love lost. When I was talking with Lauda a couple of days ago and asking him what happens at the end of the season, it was really very clear. He didn't care. He said, I'm going to go ahead and Prost regardless of what they tell me. I'm out for myself.
That's right. Well, Niki's a tough guy. Alan Prost now has to think of the World Championship, has to think of points, and has to drive to finish right now. Niki Lauda coming up from 8th position on the starting grid. There's your leader. That's the man. That's Nelson Piquet, who at this time is not at all being threatened by Niki Lauda. He's very famous, Piquet, for taking a very cautious and reserved position. He doesn't go away and take a big, handsome lead. He's perfectly happy to have just a useful cushion rather than a big one.
Well, Piquet has now passed both Lotuses, that is Mansell and D'Angelis. That means only 5 cars on the same lap, but our live coverage will continue from Montreal. As we return to Montreal, look at this close call for Mansell and Lauda.
Well, Nigel Mansell, it wasn't Mansell, it was D'Angelis actually made an error and came across the track, nearly T-boned Niki Lauda as he was rejoining the racetrack. Lauda had to run wide, got his wheels in the dirt, could easily have got into the barrier on the left-hand side of the racetrack right there. Alan Prost, who had already dropped quite a long way behind, just coming into the picture there, was in a position to get much closer to Niki Lauda. But Nelson Piquet certainly has an advantage, and Lauda already has pulled out quite a comfortable cushion on Alan Prost. I think we're now going to see Lauda attempting to close the gap on Nelson Piquet.
Jackie, we mentioned the current world standings, a great race going on between the McLaren teammates. Prost is the leader with 28.5 points. Nicky Lauda second with 18. Rennie Arnoux running very well here today is third with 14.5. Derek Warwick and Renault fourth with 13. Elio De Angelis, the Lotus driver, is fifth with 12.5. Keke Rosberg, already out of the race, is sixth with 11 points. And Michele Alboreto is seventh with 9. Patrick Tambay, it's interesting, is eighth with 7 points. If you're just joining us, wondering where Patrick Tambay is, the Renault driver did not race here. He got into the car on Thursday morning, tried it out, said, I can't do it. I can't work the clutch with my left leg. Patrick Tambay and Renault were involved in an accident 2 weeks ago in Monte Carlo. He has a broken bone below the knee in his left leg and said there's no way he could drive here. He hopes to drive a week from today in Detroit. And let me remind the folks, Jackie, we'll be in the Motor City to provide live coverage of the Detroit Grand Prix next Sunday afternoon.
Looking forward to that. In the meantime, we're looking live at the Labatt Grand Prix of Canada. The leader is Nelson Piquet, car number 1, the car that you see there. In second place is from Austria, Nicky Lauda, driving car number 8, the McLaren. And behind him in third position, the leader of this year's World Championship so far, Alain Prost, driving car number 7, also driving a tag McLaren. Nelson Piquet has led from the first lap. Really, he overtook at the end of the first lap. He lost his pole position at the beginning of the race, was out-dragged by quite a few of the other cars, particularly by Alain Prost. And there was a puff of smoke came out of Nelson Piquet's car there just as we cut to the hairpin shot. I hope that was not a mechanical problem in the engine that we just witnessed. We're not looking at our leader right now. These are cars that are further back in the field. We're now searching for Piquet, but he certainly had something. There he is. He's still running, but there was a puff of smoke came out of his car. He may just have been down changing, but I didn't like the look of that. He pulls away. He's still got quite a handsome lead on Nicky Lauda.
Jackie, I had the pleasure of test driving, learning to drive a Formula 2000 car a couple of weeks ago at Mosport. The thing that I found hardest was the shifting of the gears as well as trying to navigate it around the course. How many times, roughly, would they shift gears on a course like this in one lap?
You'll be shifting gears about 18 or 19 times per lap around this racetrack. It depends whether you jump gears up and down. So there's quite a few messages you can get from that. You can do it one way or the other. Back in the pits, we have Barry Gill with a bulletin. Barry?
Although some of the teams want to go right through this race without a tyre change, the tyres we've looked at on the cars that have come in indicate a lot more people are going to have to make pit stop visits. Poor old De Cesaris has just come in with completely blistered tyres, but he's also got completely failing brakes. Jackie, you pointed out earlier today that brakes will be a major problem at Montreal. Well, it started.
All right, Barry, our leader still is Nelson Piquet, as he was there lapping a slower car. And here we see that puff of smoke that I spoke of earlier. Now, that was not at a braking distance. It wasn't somewhere where I would expect it to see that smoke coming out. And that's something that does disturb me, and I'm sure Nelson Piquet felt it. I can't imagine what it was. It may have jumped out of gear, perhaps, but certainly it doesn't seem to have caused him any inconvenience. 22 laps still to go in this event. Nelson Piquet nursing himself along.
You were talking about the number of gear changes in a lap here at Montreal. I'm often asked to compare that with a lap, say, in the Indianapolis 500.
Well, of course, you don't change gear at all going around Indianapolis. You don't even lift your foot off the gas pedal if you're one of the faster cars that handle well. It's just flat out nowadays, even though they're doing more than 200 miles an hour average around that racetrack. This is what makes the Grand Prix driver that little bit more versatile. He's got to turn right as he is doing here, then he'll turn left, then he'll accelerate, then he'll brake, then he'll downshift and upshift. He's got to do so many different things. And those drivers, of course, at Indianapolis are very talented in their own way in a specific skill. But I think the Grand Prix driver still is the most versatile of all the drivers in racing.
Not to take anything away from the Indy drivers, but they're basically just steering the car, albeit at terrifying speeds. Many of them want the speeds lowered. But again, when I was driving that Formula 2000, the next step down at Mosport, I was amazed at the number of other things you have to do in addition to just getting that car around the course.
Keep in mind that race drivers are really born into it. I think that's the main thing, Brian. I mean, you're very good at commentating, and your skill in this world, God gave you a gift to do that. they've given Nelson Piquet and René Arnoux and the other boys, their talent is driving a car.
You're saying I'm not good at driving?
I'm saying it's more difficult for you to take all of these things in to do it. That's a natural thing. I'm sure they would have difficulty doing your job too.
We just had a shot of the crowd here. We have no figures yet. Beginning to cloud up a bit. There'll be no rain, though, before the end of the race. Beautiful day. Jackie, they're figuring on a record crowd for 1984.
Well, it's very nice to see here in Canada because, you know, you could have said when Gilles Villeneuve was alive, you could say that they were coming to see their man win a Grand Prix. Gilles is dead, and yet the Canadian crowd still come to support motor racing and Grand Prix motor racing. I think it's a legacy that he's left. He interested them in this sport, and they've followed that interest through because it's very heartwarming to see such an enormous attendance in this event.
Gerald Donaldson, in his fine book, The History of the Canadian Grand Prix, calls it the Formula One circus. And what struck me the first time I came to a race several years ago was the atmosphere. It really is a happening. There is so much more than just a race. The entourage, the machines, the whole city of Montreal is alive. You go downtown at night, you see the people from all over the world.
I went down there last night. It was amazing to me how many people just stopped me in the street to say hello. The city has a fever for the Grand Prix. Well, that car going round the hairpin, Brian, sorry, doesn't show any signs of tire deterioration. He's not got oversteer, which means the back end getting loose. He doesn't have understeer, which means the back end pushing. When a car has understeer, you turn the steering wheel into the corner and it just wants to go straight on. It's not happening for Nelson Piquet right now. He seems to be driving fairly precisely. He can hit apexes where he wants to hit them, and that's a very valuable factor. He's now really finding his way through the slower traffic. That looks like Johnny Cicotto there. He's trying to get past right now from Venezuela.
Johnny Cicotto in the number 20 Tolman, the teammate of Ayrton Senna. When he passes Cicotto, he will have lapped Cicotto for the second time. He's now gone 2 laps ahead of Cicotto, who is right now standing, let's see, in the number 13 position. In fact, there were only 5 cars: Piquet, Lauda, Prost, Arnoux, Warwick, and on the same lap. Into the pits, one of the Tyrrells, that's Beloff.
He looks like he's topping up with his weight. It's water that he's filling for ballast. He didn't change tires. He just came in to add water, to add weight for the end of the race. When this car is reweighed, he has to be within the regulations. And that is an added factor of weight, that water load that he took on.
Seeing the Tyrrell car reminds me that we should thank Ken Tyrrell Jr. and his wife Sandra that have flown over from London, England to keep us up to date. They do the laps for us here in Montreal. Right now, let's go down to the pits in Barry Gill.
Well, just to mention for Ken that his father's done it again. That pit stop took 7.96 seconds. The tyres and, of course, the mystery ballast, which I believe is East Horsley water all the way from Surrey.
Well, Barry, while you were away there, we just recognized that Arnoux has just been passed by Derek Warwick, and Derek Warwick has got himself, there he is right there, that's the pass there. Derek Warwick has now himself up into 4th position. That's pretty impressive. So Arnoux was being very impressive, and at the same time, so also obviously is Derek Warwick.
We were talking about Team Tyrrell. Ken and Sandra again helping us up here. You're very familiar. You spent some happy years there.
Certainly did. I won the Canadian Grand Prix a couple of times with Ken Tyrrell, both times at Mosport. And there you see another little attempt there by somebody to creep past.
That's Prost and Warwick.
No, that's Arnoux there. That's René Arnoux in the Ferrari. And there, that's the little battle going on there. Coming down to the hairpin bend now. This is a little wiggle and shuffle here. René Arnoux in trouble. René Arnoux is in trouble. He's just been passed by several cars. I think you will find that he will be coming into the pits very soon. He will probably signal this time. No, he keeps his head down. He doesn't say anything. But he is not a man who's happy.
René Arnoux in the number 28 Ferrari now starting to fall back. For those of you joining us, his teammate Michele Alboreto, a winner this year in Belgium, went out of the race early. Arnoux came in for a tire change. Barry showed us they were pitted, torn up. He went out again on the track, made a great charge all the way up to the number 3 position. He's now dropped back and dropping fast. The leader still Nelson Piquet.
And that's Nelson Piquet coming up behind Manfred Winkelhock to lap him for the second time also. German driver.
The only drivers on the same lap again are Nelson Piquet, Niki Lauda, who is 6.32 seconds back, followed by Alain Prost, who is 11 seconds back, and Derek Warwick, who is more than a minute back. So only 4 cars on the same lap.
Well, there's Piquet getting through there. Clearly past Winkelhock.
We should run down for our viewers right now the cars that are out of the race at this point. 26 cars started. Let's see, 1, 2, 10 cars out of the race. They're car number 2, the Brabham of Corrado Fabi. Both Williams cars, Lafitte and Rosberg. Jonathan, or Mike Backwell, who is replacing Jonathan Palmer in the number 2 Ram Hart. Gary Boutsen in an Arrows. Hub Rothengatter in the Spirit Honda, who replaced Mauro Baldi, driving this weekend at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Ricardo Patrese out of the race, as are Inzani, De Cesaris, and number 27, Michele Alvaredo. We'll return to Montreal as Sports Weekend continues. And on this Father's Day, 1984, yours truly, Brian Williams, along with 3-time world champion Jackie Stewart, and from London, England, Barry Gill, welcome back to the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal. Nelson Piquet now leading with only 17 laps to go.
And we're looking at Niki Lauda finding his way past Manfred Winkelhock, lapping him for the second time.
There's your leader.
That's the leader. That's Niki Lauda there.
Jackie, he's now nearly 5 seconds back. We thought Piquet was dropping, but he's increased his lead by about half second.
Well, he in fact had got it up to more than 6 seconds, and then he's brought it back down again. This is very Piquet-ish. He doesn't go out for the big leads that some drivers do go out for. He feels as if he can handle a 5 to 6 second lead without worrying himself too much. I personally think it's not quite enough, because you only need to just miss an apex or miss a gear change, and suddenly that 5 seconds can be down to 3 or 3.5. And when you start seeing the eyes of the driver behind you, it's very disconcerting and can put you off your timing. So
could it be, though, as we look at our leader, Nelson Piquet, could it be that Piquet, as he comes around past the grandstand, is concerned about the fuel? Remember, he hasn't gone this far in a race yet.
No, he certainly hasn't, but just let me interrupt you. Right in front of the pits right now, Belloff has stopped right out, not in the pit lane, but on the racetrack. There he is, sitting there right at the Tyrrell pit. That's his own mechanic leaning over to chat with him, and he's closing the office for the day. The first time that Tyrrell drove in a Formula 1 race, I drove it here in Canada, which was in Saint-Jovite. But Stefan Belloff is climbing out and is not going to be doing any more racing today.
So Martin
didn't have to walk far, did he?
No, he didn't get to climb the wall, though. Martin Brundle, the other Tyrrell, is standing in the number 12 position. It's interesting, he's 12th. He's more than 2 minutes behind the leader, Nelson Piquet. That's the Renault of Derek Warwick, who has been 3rd this year in South Africa, 2nd in Belgium, and 4th at San Marino.
Derek Warwick, incidentally, is really pushing hard. He's driven a darn good race. I must say that I'm looking towards Derek Warwick in the future as being the type of driver who could easily be world champion material. He has served a tough apprenticeship driving cars previously that haven't had the reliability. Now, of course, he's going to be lapped here, and you can see, actually, he's not going as fast as he used to go. There's something wrong here. He's got a performance factor in his car, because Niki Lauda was just passing him too easily. Nelson Piquet, he doesn't seem to be having any trouble.
Listen, I'm surprised as we look at Piquet that Warwick is still in this race when you consider he's gone through 12 engines this week in Montreal.
Well, that's the entire Renault team, but now Derek Warwick has got into the pits. That was him going slowly, we saw earlier, and he's now in the pits.
And with Warwick in the pits, here's Terry Gilbert.
4 seconds gone, 5 seconds gone, 6 seconds. Derek Warwick hoped to go through the race. Renault hoped he might be able to. We're standing back to let him out quickly. Warwick, who really does want a result after all the problems. And as you can see, one of the front tyres is stuck. He's got problems. That took, according to my watch, 20 seconds. So Derek Warwick, a real problem there. That isn't the sort of pit stop he wanted.
Too long a pit stop. He did get out before Arnoux passed. René Arnoux, incidentally, has also had mechanical troubles. It seems to me that he's lost some of his gears in his Ferrari. The man who hasn't lost any gears or any tyres so far is Niki Lauda, firmly in second position, picking up enough points that he will certainly pass my record of the Grand Prix World Championship points. I was saying to you earlier, I didn't actually know I held that record until someone told me the other day.
Jackie, only 3 cars now on the same lap. The leader, Piquet, by now, look at this, he's increased it from 4.9 up to 6.47 over Lauda, 24 seconds over Prost. Derek Warwick, who is running 4th, Mansell 5th, Arnoux 6th, D'Angelo 7th, Cheever now 8th, Senna been very consistent as 9th. They are all 1 lap behind this man, the leader, defending world champion Nelson Piquet. Will he hang on and finally not only win but finish a race in this 1984 season? McLaren has won 5 of the 6 previous. This man has yet to finish.
Well, he's riding the odd curb there. I don't think that he intended to do that. And you can see the car, the second car in the picture, incidentally, is Niki Lauda. So if our man Piquet makes any little errors of judgment at all, just a short breath behind him is Niki Lauda. That's something that can easily be a pressure to him, of course. And there's Derek Warwick back in the pits again. They're changing tyres again. Something must have gone wrong. They're changing that front tyre. They couldn't have been happy with it.
There we go.
Well, this really is a bad moment for the Renault team. As you see, Warwick's come back in. The reason that front tyre that we saw with a lot of problems, they took it off, put another one on, so obviously there's a problem there. There's something wrong at the back of the car. Warwick will not be a happy man, and neither will the Renault mechanics. Back to you, Jackie.
Well, it does seem that they changed both outside tyres again. I can't imagine why they had to do that after being in there just 1 lap before. That, of course, is costly. And, of course, Derek Warwick will not be pleased, whether it was sloppy teamwork or a bad decision or whatever happened, Barry. Maybe you can find that out, because they should not have had to come in just 1 lap after their stop. Nelson Piquet coming up to stock a slower car. Of course, it's very important for him to see and be seen. There's no point in him at this stage of the race coming up behind a driver who might be getting a wee bit tired and might not be paying attention to his rear view mirrors, and therefore can easily get you in trouble. So for Nelson Piquet, this is where concentration and fitness and mental agility is still very much in vogue.
It's interesting you mentioned fitness. Is the head the sign maybe that they're tiring, they're wearing down at the end of a race?
Oh, quite often the physical factor can play a big part. The weather conditions today here in the Ile Notre Dame are ideal. It's not too warm, there's a fresh breeze, the air is fresh itself, it's not too humid. The head, of course, gets tired because of the lateral G that goes on to a driver. Neck muscles and the upper body of a racing driver are usually very strong indeed. It's a real constant isometric exercise lying in a Formula One car nowadays, and crash helmets are trying to be made as light as possible while still being as strong, because of course it's a great extra weight on the driver's head and neck muscles. Nigel Mansell, who's in 4th position right now, has been a bridesmaid a little too often. Would like to see him win a race. Maybe if he won 1 race, he would find himself the winner's circle a little more often. He had that chance in Monte Carlo while leading the race 2 short weeks ago. Blew it himself, he reckons, by not paying enough attention. And of course, that was a costly lesson.
And we remind our viewers across the country, we'll be returning to Don Whitman at Sports Weekend Control for the U.S. Open following the race, and that is Martin Brundle in the Tyrrell into the pits. The other Tyrrell, Stefan Beloff, is already out.
He's coming in for ballast. He was just coming in to be topped up with water so that he could finish accordingly.
Ooh, that's quick.
Within
He's
the
out.
regulations, that would be a fast pit stop also. Nelson Piquet, our leader, still on his merry way, is now been counting down the number of laps to go as far as he's concerned. There comes a time, once you get under the 20 lap number, it becomes something of a relief to know that you've got less than 20 laps to go. And when you get onto those single figures, oh, what a relief it is. 10 laps remaining in this race, so they're nearly onto their single figures.
You know, it's interesting. Brabham, Jack Brabham, won the first Canadian Grand Prix back in 1967. Brabham, it looks like, is finally going to win a race, and it'll be the Canadian Grand Prix in 1984.
Well, the car bearing his name, Black Jack, now Sir Jack Brabham, is probably sitting down his farm in Australia right now, or flying one of his aircraft, or watching one of his sons. Jacques Villeneuve today is out in Portland, and there's, by the way, Warwick back in the pits, changing tires again. I can't believe this. There's something very strange about this. I can't believe this.
Warwick going into the pits was 8th, trailing Piquet, Lauda, Prost, Mansell, DeAngelis, Cheever, and Arnoux.
He's now having a conversation with his crew, so that can't be good news. And there's Niki Lauda accelerating away from the far west end of the racetrack.
I'm a little surprised. We thought that Piquet, not having gone the distance this season, might be trying to conserve fuel late in the race. That is not the case. He's now increased his lead to nearly 8 seconds over this man, the number 8 McLaren of Niki Lauda. Barry?
Well, we talked to Gerard LaRousse down here, Jackie and Brian, and in the middle of all this chaos, he was polite enough to tell us that something was wrong underneath at the back of the car. We think, if you see these mechanics now going wild, jumping up and down, but there's something broken at the back. We saw pieces of the car on the ground when it went out again after its first pit stop. This really is like something out of stock cars at the moment, as they're sort of bashing this sophisticated car to try and get any loose bits away from it. He's been here over a minute. This is the end of Derek Warwick's hopes for the points. Back to you, Brian and Jackie.
And our coverage, our live coverage of the 1984 Labatt Grand Prix of Canada will continue from Ile Notre Dame in Montreal. Back to the Labatt Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal. 8 laps to go in this 70-lap race. The leader is still Nelson Piquet. That's the Alfa Romeo, car number 23 of Eddie Cheever. Cheever last year drove for Renault, right now down to the pits, and Barry Gill.
A very disappointed Derek Warwick, and Derek, I should think, somewhat confused. What happened exactly?
The rear bodywork come adrift, and I thought the tyres had gone. So I came in for tyres, but it was just the rear body panel had broken, and there was no point in trying to put a new one on.
Was it extremely rough out there, Derek? Why do you think that happened?
I don't know. There's a lot of bumps. The car was very harsh when the fuel load lightened, and I just think that the car just bottomed out and gradually destroyed the back end.
Not been your weekend, has it, Derek?
No, I'd rather forget this weekend, I think.
Thank you for talking to us anyway, Derek, and bad luck. Back to you, Jackie.
Right, Barry, well, here we see a little battle going on there. DeAngelis is trying to fend off a battle that was coming up with Eddie Cheever, but he seems to have opened up the gap again. Elio DeAngeli, he's got himself in 5th position, but he's got a problem. DeAngelis' engine in front of the pits it's Mansell's engine just in front of the pits has just lost all of its power. That's DeAngelis going through. That's Eddie Cheever in the green car with the red nose coming up. And very slowly behind that, Mansell was just going at 2 knots in an onion, very slowly indeed. Another engine, it looks like, or maybe out of fuel, who knows?
How fast is 2?
Very slow.
It's been a bad weekend, not only for Derek Warwick, but for the entire Renault team. There's been some criticism of Renault in France that they're spending too much money. Patrick Tambay not able to race here because of the broken bone in his left leg suffered at Monte Carlo. Patrick is here. We talked to him today. He tried to drive the car on Thursday.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Montreal. We apologize for our problems. Ryan Williams, Jackie Stewart, and Barry Gill. We have 3 laps to go in this 70-lap Labatt Canadian Grand Prix. That is car number 7, Alain Prost, the world driving leader before this race, currently standing third, 1 minute, 4.80 seconds behind this man, the leader, Nelson Piquet, the defending world champion, on his way to his first win of 1984, his first finish of 1984.
With only 2 laps to go in this race, Nelson is now very much nursing the car home. He's got a very useful lead. He doesn't want to give it away. He's got to keep in mind that sometimes as close to the finish as this, we've known cars not to pick up the last few litres of fuel. So you're seeing a man here now who's almost holding his breath. They've had such a sad time with reliability this year. For him, as the reigning world champion, it's always very discouraging never to be able to allow his talent to be seen and exercised to the full extent.
That's René Arnoux, the car on the right of your screen, the red Ferrari. Arnoux right now running in the number 6 position, 2 laps and nearly 3 minutes behind the leader, Piquet. His teammate Alboreto went out of the race early. Arnoux is preceded by number 12, that is Nigel Mansell.
Well, if he passes Nigel Mansell, it now would suggest that he gets himself into 5th position, which would be very useful for him World Championship point-wise. Niki Lauda there, coming in under braking underneath the bridge. There, of course, a lap behind the Niki Lauda Alain Prost car, but there is Nelson Piquet coming up with 1 lap to go, it should be. In our reckoning, 1 lap to go. They don't show a white flag here for this kind of racing. In Grand Prix racing at Indianapolis, they would have showed the white flag, would have suggested 1 more lap to go. And René Arnoux just passing our start-finishing line position here, attempting to pass Nigel Mansell to get himself into 5th position.
Nelson Piquet, Niki Lauda, and Alain Prost are the only 3 drivers on the same lap. Piquet leads Lauda by 12 seconds, Prost by a minute 14.
Well, this is his final lap, trying to avoid any problems whatsoever. There's the crowd beginning to cheer him. The hands are going up in the air. You can be sure this final lap is a very gentle one.
Jacques Brabham won the first ever Canadian Grand Prix. And now,
a car bearing his name.
Yes, sir.
The illustrious Sir Jack Brabham, retired to farming and aviation in Australia, the name being kept alive by Bernie Eccleston, who's the head of FOCA, and by Nelson Piquet, last year's world champion in a Brabham, this year winning the Labatt Grand Prix of Canada. Really a very gentle last lap. If I were him, I would be doing exactly the same thing. He's got 1 lap to go. 1 corner to go on his final lap. The checkered flag is out. They're about to wave it to him, and there the checkered flag in the top right-hand side of your picture. Nelson Piquet.
Nelson Piquet has won the Canadian Grand Prix, finishing second. And Niki Lauda, Alain Prost will be third. So Piquet, Jackie, when asked earlier this week, what about fuel problems? He said, I don't know. We haven't gone far enough to find out. He finally found out, and found out on a happy note today in Montreal. The Brabham went the distance.
Well, there's Niki Lauda, who in fact has passed him on the road on that after the start-finishing line. Niki Lauda must be quite happy. He's picked up 6 points. I suggest that means that he has passed the total of championship points that I have had.
No, he needed to win.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he's still
so
2
he's
points
still
behind you. He had 352.5. You had 360, so he's now just a point and a half behind you. Niki Lauda finishing second. That gives him, let's see, 24 points for the year, but he's still well behind Alain Prost, who now will have 33 points, 33.5 after finishing third here. Nelson Piquet with 9 points will be tied with Michele Alboreto for 7th place.
Keep in mind that Alain Prost has not yet crossed the finishing line. I see his car going into the final corner right now. He's going round the hairpin bend. That's the car of Niki Lauda you're looking at right now. But as we look out from our commentary position, Alan Prost is now approaching the start-finishing line and is taking the checkered flag to finish in 3rd position, picking up 4 championship points. Remember, the World Championship points go 9 for first, 6 for second, 4 for third, 3 for fourth, 2 for second, 2 for fifth, and 1 point for 6th place. A lot of cars going very gently around there. Nelson Piquet, not rushing things, knows that the folks will wait to give him the Labatt Trophy for the Grand Prix of Canada.
Nelson Piquet wins the Labatt Canadian Grand Prix for the 2nd time. Won here in 1982, held the pole position in 1980, 1981, and again today. Really led for most of the race, 69 laps out of the 70-lap race. That's the hairpin turn coming back along past the home grandstand, the tower, the grid. There is Arnoux. Arnoux, it appears, has run out of fuel.
Well, he certainly stopped on the racetrack. If that's running out of fuel, I think that's taking economy a little too far. Even a Scotsman wouldn't bother to go that far, but Nelson Piquet now come into the pit lane, being joined by all of the officials as well as mechanics, because the car will be impounded to be checked out with regards to the regulations. He's not allowed to touch the car. The gentleman in the white shirt, there's a man called John Korsmit, who's from FISA, the governing body of motorsport. He just spoke to his mechanic and asked him please not to touch the car, because if for any reason they bent the aerofoil, it looks like Piquet's on the ground. Piquet got out of the car and is on the ground. Why is he on the ground? Is he tired? You know, a previous occasion he fainted. He's trying to get his shoes off. He's obviously got sore, blistered feet, but he's trying to undo the shoelaces.
And remember, this is the first time he's had a full race this season.
Yeah, there's something wrong with them. It could be that, you know, they have radiators in the front of those cars, oil radiators and water radiators sometimes to cool the turbos, and if there's a lot of heat coming in there, it really could be a problem for him. Obviously it is in this case. He's got a bottle of water beside it there, so he's now going to try and get his helmet off. He did faint last year after the Brazilian Grand Prix, which was held in very hot conditions. Charlie, his mechanic there, switching things off in the car. Mechanics are sore. Look at that, they're trying to get his helmet off now. Nelson's obviously slightly confused by it all. No, he seems happy. There's a smile on his face. The mechanic needs the water more than Nelson. Nelson just wants to show his feet to the world. This, of course, is global television. He'll be going to South America, be going to South Africa, probably, certainly to England and Europe. And he certainly seems to be suffering pain from his right foot.
We'll return with more festivities of the 1984 Labatt Canadian Grand Prix. And Barry Gill, Nelson Piquet finishes his first race of 1984. His first win since last season when he was world champion. Alain Prost still leads the world driving standings now with 32.5 points. Prost was third here today. Niki Lauda, his McLaren teammate, finished second, moves up to second place in the driver standings with 24 points. René Arnoux now third, 16.5. Derek Warwick has 13 points, and Nelson Piquet is now tied, Jackie Stewart, for 7th place with Ferrari's Michele Alboreto, 9 points for the win. Alboreto, by the way, did not finish today's race as he went out early.
Well, the driver's now being taken in the truck around to the victory circle area. The big Labatt 50 sign on the back there. No doubt they're taking a little refreshment, probably mineral water at this time. But I see Niki Lauda there in the red overalls sitting down. Niki's head still very badly scarred from the horrific accident he had in 1976, where most of the hair was burned from his head when his helmet came off in the accident. Alain Prost, no doubt, is in the back of that vehicle. I see Nelson Piquet. I don't suppose he's put his socks back on or his shoes back on, certainly of his left or right foot, was it? I had lots of trouble with my feet when I was racing, yes, and Alain Prost is in the back of that vehicle also. I think they may well be doing a tour of the track. They're now being held up, however, by the special vehicles to take all of the spares back to the garage area. The drivers standing up there being well televised. There is a camera up there. The two teammates, Alain Prost and Niki Lauda, chatting to each other. as we look over the skyline of beautiful Montreal on an ideal summer day. It just couldn't be better. The conditions so perfect. There's Nelson Piquet there, happy man from Brazil, waving to the crowd. A lot of enthusiastic people for him. He's a very, very gentle man. The Michelin man behind him there, and one of the journalists from Brazil on the left-hand side over his shoulder who... Oh, look, he's got his foot stuck in a pail of water, trying to keep his foot cool. He's going to have only a week to get that repaired and the blisters off it before he goes to the Detroit Grand Prix that we will be covering live. Brian and I will be speaking to you on behalf of CBC from Detroit. Alain Prost has got out of the truck and they are now going towards the presentation ceremony. The Ferrari being towed back, Rennie Arnaud's car being towed back. Of course, Rennie did finish the race and finish it well. Nelson Piquet now limping very heavily as he steps from the back of that car, being carried half, I suppose, in jubilation and another half in pain, Brian. But he's been carried up to the winner's rostrum here by the useful men in the Labatt caps.
Jackie, let's alert our viewers across the country. We'll be returning shortly to Don Whitman at Sports Weekend Control in Toronto. Still to come today on CBC, live coverage of the final round of the U.S. Open. There's the 1984 Labatt Canadian Grand Prix champion, Brazilian Nelson Piquet.
Niki Lauda on his left there without his hat on, and Alain Prost on the right-hand side of our picture with his hat on. The foot playing a big part, still up there, barefooted.
That's the right foot, which is his brake accelerator foot.
Mesdames, Messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, le président de la brasserie Labatt
gas pedal or on the brake pedal, so I know what it feels like. Pierre Desjardins is going to make the presentation and in respect to Labatt.
Ladies and gentlemen, au nom de la brasserie Labatt, j'aimerais d'abord remercier tous les spectateurs qui sont venus aujourd'hui voir un événement magnifique. J'aimerais aussi remercier les milliers de bénévoles qui ont fait de cet événement le succès qu'il est aujourd'hui. J'aimerais aussi remercier le comité organisateur, la FISA, la FOCA, la Fédération canadienne et québécoise et la Ville de Montréal. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd also like to thank the drivers, their crews and their sponsors. Merci beaucoup.
Mesdames, Messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, Monsieur Desjardins va maintenant procéder à la remise des trophées du Grand Prix Labatt du Canada. En troisième position, in third place, de France, Alain Prost.
And Alain Prost gets a sailing ship, it looks, a lovely model. This is the kind of thing that, frankly, a racing driver loves to get as an award rather than a trophy, Brian. It's so nice to be able to get something you can put in your home.
D'Autriche from Austria, Niki Lauda.
Relaxed and very happy Niki Lauda. We talked during the race as he is presented his trophy by Pierre Desjardins, the president of the Labatt Breweries of Quebec. Very happy this year, willing to talk to the media, no longer uptight, very honest about the fact there's no love lost with Alain Prost, his teammate.
Well, I think they're in good terms, but they're both horribly competitive, and that's understandable. There's Nelson Piquet. He's got his laurel wreath on, and he's getting a trophy, the Labatt Trophy for the Labatt Grand Prix of Canada from Pierre Desjardins. Labatt's very much involved, obviously, in the support of this event to bring such a costly field of drivers and cars all the way to Canada. Of course, they'll move on where we'll have live coverage next week of the Detroit Grand Prix.
Brazil's national anthem.
And here we now have the national anthem being played. It is indeed the national anthem of Brazil. Unusual because it's generally the anthem of the entrant, which in this case would be the British national anthem. In this case, they are playing it for the driver. The flags of all three nations flying there above the podium. Brazilian flag, of course the Austrian flag, and the French one.
Here's what you like.
Well, a little champagne being sprayed, never hurt anybody. Victory synonymous, of course, champagne with celebration. Nelson Piquet's got out of practice. He hasn't been doing so much of it recently. Certainly now learning again. I'm very happy to do so, I'm sure.
Barry Gill has done an outstanding job working down in the pits this afternoon. I know there are hundreds of people around there. Barry, can you hear us?
I'm with Nelson Piquet, who was asked to sit down, and no wonder. Nelson, first question, why have you got your shoes off?
Well, we have a new front radiator on in the car, and the temperature got too hot, and the heat came in the pedals, and I burned my feet very badly under here. Now the bottom of the feet.
At the moment, I should think the pain is healed by the fact you've not only won your second Canadian Grand Prix, but of course your first Grand Prix of the season. Were you at any time concerned, Nelson?
Well, I knew that the car was very competitive, and I knew if I didn't have a problem with the engine, I didn't have any problem, because I have much more power, and I was holding the race the way I want. I did a bad start, and I passed Alan the first lap, and I keep him all the way 2 seconds behind me. And when I saw Nicky coming, I ran away a little bit, and I did a very easy race.
Well, you've stopped the McLaren gallop towards the championship. Do you think it's too late for you to keep your title?
Well, if you have more competitive cars, well, maybe we could. But the way it is now, it's our cars, McLaren cars. We are far ahead of everybody, and it's very difficult because they are very, very much in the front. But anyway, let's see. I was nearly in the same position, much close to the end, and I got the points I was missing. I will try, for sure.
Last question, Nelson. You must like Canada a lot. It's really proved to be your lucky circuit again and again.
Yeah, I do like it. It's very nice. The people is very nice. I really enjoy here, not only because I win 2 races here already, but because the place is very nice.
Well, now, Nelson, we wait for someone to carry you on your victory tour.